as we await the general election. But as I mentioned, there are plenty of things that we can do as Americans to restore a free and fair election through True the Vote, Cause of America, precinctstrategy.com. There's a lot of, if we could take a live look there to the left, I'm not sure if our camera op can hear that, but if we can kind of see the amount of Senate Republicans there. I think that's Katie Britt out of Alabama there as well. The monitor here in the studio is a little bit far, but I do see a number of people. I mean, look at all of those people. They're standing behind President Trump. Well, if you didn't think that they were supporting President Trump, well, there they are now. We do know, and I know that just because somebody stands behind President Trump doesn't always mean that they're full on in support. Well, we've seen that. Well, there's President Trump right now. We're going to go live there to Washington, D.C. You're watching Right Side Broadcasting Network. Please.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great meeting. There's tremendous unity in the Republican Party. We want to see borders. We want to see strong military. We want to see money not wasted all over the world. We don't want to see Russian ships right off the coast of Florida, which is what they are right now. That's unthinkable. We want to see just success for our country. And we don't have success right now. We have inflation that's killing everybody. We have levels of inflation that nobody's seen for, they say 42 years, they say 53 years, and they say 75 years. I would say probably all of them are wrong. Probably we've never seen levels like this before. And we're going to end that. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're going to bring back common sense to government. We're going to have strong borders, and we're going to have people come into our country, but they're going to come in legally. They're not going to pour in from prisons all over South America and all over the world. And it's not just South America, by the way. It's all over the world. And we're not going to have them pour in from mental institutions, which is where they're coming from. Large numbers, and large numbers are terrorists. And we're not going to have this. So what's happening to our country is of great concern to the group of people standing alongside of me. And I just wanted to say that we have great unity. We have great common sense. A lot of very smart people in this room, and a lot of people that love our country. They love our country beyond just about all else. And the only thing that maybe supersedes it is their family and maybe their faith in certain instances, and that's very nice. But they want this country to be great again, and we're going to make it great again. And so I just want to thank the Republican Senate, and I want to thank also the House. We met, as you know, with the full House, Republican House today, and we had a tremendous them also, and there's great unity. Very similar, different topics actually, but not that different. And there's one thing in common. We want to make America great again. We want to make our country great again. We're a nation that's in decline. We're a declining nation. We're a nation that is being laughed at all over the world. We have a leader that's being laughed at all over the world. And we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast. The polls are looking like they're very strongly for us. And no matter where you look, in fact, a lot of states that people thought weren't in play are very strongly in play. Some were actually leading in. But we have to get elected. We have to take this beautiful place, and we have to make it really something very special again. Right now, it's not special. Right now, it's being scorned and being used as an example of when they look at the crime on the streets, when they look at all of the problems that we have, they're using us as a bad example of democracy. and they're getting away with murder, and we're not going to let it happen. So I just want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank everybody here. You're all either elected or you're going to be elected again and reelected, and I'm with every one of you, and you know that. I'll be with you always. And thank you very much for inviting me, and we're going to have great success. I think we're going to have a tremendous election. It's November 5th is very important, but we really start much earlier than that. You have North Carolina as an example. You have North Carolina September 6th. You have Pennsylvania. It starts on September 22nd. These are things different from the old days. We had election day and you had paper ballots and you had voter ID. Unfortunately, maybe someday we'll get back to that, but you don't have that right now. But this is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything, and if there isn't, we work it out. And I've had a really great relationship with just about everybody here, just about all of the senators. And if it wasn't fantastic, it gets worked out. And we have one thing in mind, and that's making our country great. So thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
They're meeting with former President Donald Trump. Let's listen to the speaker.
I made the point in my introduction of him that it's backfired fantastically on the Democrat Party and the activists who are trying to use our judicial system to exact political vendettas against the primary opponent that they have for the control of the country. And what we've seen is outrageous, and we've also seen the polling and the fundraising and everything else go in the direction of the target. President Trump has set fundraising records. He raised $53 million in the first 24 hours after the verdict in that terrible, bogus trial in Manhattan. And I think that shows that people understand what's happening here. We also set fundraising records, and we've continued to. He's announced he's raised over $400 million since the verdict came down, and there's much more to come. And you know why? Because people see that that is a threat to our republic. They see that that's a threat to our system of justice, and they want to push back. And so in many ways, President Trump has become a symbol of that, pushing back against corruption, the deep state, the weaponization of the judicial system, and that's a very encouraging development. So I think that he made the point every time they indicted him, his polls went up. That's right, because people see exactly what's happening here, and we have to fix it, and we will.
Does the former president give his endorsement to this leadership team, and does he want you to continue to be the speaker after the November election?
He said very complimentary things about all of us. We had sustained applause. He said, I'm doing a very good job.
Reunited, as we say, on Capitol Hill with the former president, the head of the Republican Party in terms of its ticket, the presumptive nominee for the presidential campaign and presidential election coming up. Okay, we'll keep you posted on when he meets with the Senate Republicans as well. If that happens this hour, of course, we'll bring you what we can live. Fox News alert now. President Biden is back on the world stage in Italy for the G7 summit. And, you know, it's been a tough week for Biden on the home front. He's getting ready to meet with Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky just a few hours from now on the world stage. And his foreign policy often is cloudy at best, dangerous at times. I'm thinking of Afghanistan in particular. With the whole world watching today, he will face reporter questions for the very first time since his son Hunter became a convicted felon. So a full day. We are waiting to see President Biden's unscripted response to that and to criticism over his handling of Russia's President Vladimir Putin. He arrived in Italy right after announcing more than 300 new sanctions against Russia. Why? Apparently, it's Biden's plan to choke Russia's ability to fund the war against Ukraine. General Jack Keane has his doubts.
They're not in the tank as these sanctions were supposed to be, and I think it's because we're not tough enough on the secondary sanctions for countries that are still doing business with Russia, namely China. Is a major supporter of Russia, and hopefully these sanctions they're imposing now will have the diligence to enforce them and make certain that they're imposed. And we'll wait and see.
Well, later today, President Biden is due to sign a new security pact with Ukraine, promising Americans extended support. Here's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
This is a big deal. A milestone partnership.
Don't
grandkids appear to be traveling with their grandfather, the president, on this trip. But for some reason, officials won't say which grandchildren are there. G7 leaders at the meetings are going to focus heavily on Russia's war on Ukraine as Pentagon officials track Russian vessels doing drills in the Caribbean. A defense official is telling us, in accordance with standard procedures, we have been actively monitoring the Russian ships as they transit the Atlantic Ocean within international waters. Russia's deployments are part of routine naval activity which pose no direct threat or concern to the United States. White House officials want credit for telling Ukraine they can start using U.S. weapons against targets inside Russia. But we have this new graphic from the Institute for the Study of War, and it shows that 84% of weapons the U.S. is giving Ukraine can't be used like that, which means that the U.S. weapons cannot hit any Russian air bases, and it cannot hit the majority of Russian air defenses. The Biden team is, though, looking to lock in this kind of support with a new agreement to make it harder for future presidents, including possibly Trump, to leave Ukraine hanging.
We're committing to support Ukraine as it builds up its defenses for the next 10 years. This is a demonstration to Vladimir Putin that he cannot outlast Ukraine, he can't outlast us, he can't outlast all of Ukraine's partners.
And if G7 organizers can keep things running on time, we should be within about 3 hours from hearing about all of this from the president himself, if he is asked. Harris.
I can't imagine they wouldn't ask him, but you know, I'm always shocked, right? Peter Doocy, thank you. In focus now, Republican Congressman Brian Mast of Florida. He's on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and on the Middle East Subcommittee. The congressman is an Army combat veteran and recipient of both the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. We welcome you into the focus. Thank you. Let's start with Ukraine and Russia. And this latest move by President Biden, I want to get your thoughts on the sanctions against Russia to see if they can take some resources away from someone who's already now reinvaded.
Yeah, the issue of economics and resources really boil down to one thing, and that's oil and gas. And you can juxtapose this to America. He cut off American oil and gas. He didn't do that in Europe, and the Russian economy is continuing to grow. That's why they have this ability to continue and fight this war in a very substantial way. I don't have a high level of confidence of what he will do with sanctions is the right kind of offense that we're looking for. Again and again, we have an administration that doesn't believe in that adage that offense is the best defense, and we could bring that back to what's going on in Cuba and the Atlantic as well.
Right. We'll get to that in a second. You heard General Jack Keane say something similar to, well, those wouldn't be the types of sanctions that would make a difference anyway. Peter Doocy just showed us the Biden team has announced that they removed most of the restrictions on the use of U.S. provided weapons against targets in Russia. Most. Actually, only 16% of possible use of their long-range weapons is in play for Ukraine. 84% of those weapons' capability is still under prohibitions. This feels like a head fake.
Yeah, when you look at this, I would say understand it in this way. Practically every Ukrainian city is leveled because Russia invaded and worked to level those cities. And the perspective that needs to be looked at on this, why on earth would we tie the hands behind the back of the Ukrainians? Why would we prevent them from being on offense of any kind of way? Why would we prevent them from bringing the fight to the battlefield inside Russia proper? That doesn't make any tactical sense whatsoever. And if you're hopeful of what they're putting forward right now, this 10-year security partnership, why would you weaken them by not allowing them to be on the offensive? And again, it goes to that statement I made before. They don't see offense as the best defense, and they don't get deterrence as a result.
Well, it's also a presidential year. And I mean, if we have seen it once, we've seen it a dozen times with this current president kind of splitting the road on his foreign policy. Look, I want to get to two more things with Russia. Breaking earlier this morning, Russia finalized their indictment of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, and he'll now stand trial on espionage charges. Moscow accused Gershkovich of gathering secret information and spying for the United States, and Russia's Federal Security Service arrested him on a reporting trip back in March of 2023. He's been imprisoned in Russia ever since, and he faces up to 20 years in prison if he's convicted. The U.S. vehemently denies the charges against him and insists he's wrongfully. Has the current administration done everything they can do? Have they played every card they could play?
Look, I've had a number of classified briefings on this so recently as of yesterday, and the administration is working a lot of different angles on this. But I think when you compare this to other wrongfully detained incidents, you have to say, who is it that the Russians want out of this? Why have we prioritized some other people to get released from being detained as opposed to these individuals? And what are they getting in terms of aid? What's going on in terms of the war? All of these things come into play about what you can make a deal for getting somebody out of that wrongful detainment situation. And I can only say this to you, that they are looking at all available options. And sorry, unfortunately, I can't elaborate more.
No. Classified meetings. That actually gives many people, including his family, I would imagine, a lot of hope because the conversation continues. I want to get this in real quickly because this felt really close to home. I mean, Cuba's only 90 miles away from Key West. Russia has sent warships to Cuba in the past. They've done this before. The two nations, us and them, are long-standing, or Cuba and Russia are long-standing allies. We know that. Why are they doing that now with Cuba? So close
they're making
to
a
us.
statement between Russia, Cuba, and don't leave Venezuela out of this as well.
Right.
There is a coalition there to put the president on his heels as he looks to say anything about a security cooperation with Ukraine. And again, I think it shows the way that they're willing to fight. We have a president that's, for the military, focusing on Pride Month as an issue, focusing on making sure that the Palestinians get a warm meal and a new port and a bridge, instead of focusing on very specific national security objectives directly in our own backyard. And that's the difference. Russia will go into our backyard to tie this back to Ukraine. We'll tell Ukraine, don't actually go into Russia's backyard.
All right, I want to tie these things together. You mentioned the war with Israel and Hamas loosely there because you talked about the Palestinians. I don't know if you watched it. I'm sure you knew before he said it. Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday said that $670 million have been given for the purposes of food and aid for the people in the Palestinian Gaza. And he said that he was watching another $400 million that is going to be part of that. Not all of it is. How much is Hamas getting? Any idea?
So it goes through Gaza, goes through Hamas to include everything on that port. And let's make one specific point on this, and that is these are not ransom payments to get the American hostages held back.
No.
We're just talking about wrongfully detained. We're not giving money saying, hey, make sure we get those Americans back. That can't be the path forward.
All right, one more conversation to have too. We have a lot of things to hit. I'm so glad you're here, Congressman. So with the hostages, Biden now reportedly wants to talk, or his administration wants to talk directly with Hamas, which would cut out Israel. Well, that would only be if we thought we could get all of the hostages back. But I'm not hearing that.
There's one reason and one reason alone that the Biden administration wants to talk directly with Palestinians, whether it be Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Fatah, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, whomever. And that's because they believe that they can work a Palestinian state outside of having a conversation with Netanyahu. They literally believe that Netanyahu is a spoiler to this. They're working with the other Arab nations on this, and they want to see Israel cut out of the conversation wherever they can. That is the stance of this administration.
You and I both know how many thousands of the IDF are fighting who are American citizens. They have dual citizenship. That is literally working against our own best effort. Wow.
Absolutely.
And I would then ask, would that lead to a widening war? I mean, if one enemy sees what you're willing to do, like Hezbollah up in Lebanon, well, what would they be thirsty to do? Right now, Hezbollah terrorists, with their largest rocket yet, have hit Israel. More than 200 rockets rained down in a barrage yesterday, Congressman. Hezbollah is saying it was in response to Israeli forces killing one of their top commanders. Your response?
Yeah, You just tied Hezbollah into it. You could also tie Yemen into it and the Red Sea. This goes all the way back to the Biden administration, or rather the Obama administration. When we were working with Yemen, they wanted to take out the Houthis. The Obama administration prevented them because they wanted to send aid there. These administrations, these Democrat administrations, are constantly holding back people that we're working with for America's best interest, and then we end up having to come back and clean up the mess later. That's what's going to happen with Lebanon, with all of those that Iran is supporting. This is going to be the path because we don't go on offense there, or we prevent our ally from going on offense.
All right, I want to put both these wars now into context. 839 days we have watched after Russia invaded Ukraine, that war go on. Don't get a lot of pressure from this president forcing one side or the other to reach a ceasefire. Tens of thousands of people have died in that conflict. All the pressure right now seems to be on Israel to end a war that Hamas started. Terrorists started on October 7th. Why?
Because they don't have the strength. You have a policy in this administration that equates strength with evil. Wherever that is, domestically or abroad, they equate strength with evil, and their supporters equate strength with evil. And you look at this and you say, even in the face of getting an Israeli hostage rescue of a number of individuals, the questions that the left was asking was, well, how many people had to be killed in order to rescue those hostages, instead of recognizing that the people that were killed because they were supporting Hamas, or they were helping them provide rockets, or a place to house those that are wrongfully detained, or they were working the tunnels, or they were working the military supply chain in some kind of way. They don't want to tie those things together. They want to see every place that America or allies are showing us strength as a place that we must have been stepping on somebody wrongfully, instead of seeing the world for what it really is, which is there's real evil, and it's not because it's tied to strength.
We're going to see a lot of the president according to his schedule on the world stage today, Italy G7. We'll be watching all of it. I'm glad that you were here to help us get through the early part of the day as we watch what happens and unfolds. Congressman Mast, thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
Fox News Alert now. The House Judiciary Committee right now is holding a hearing on what they call political prosecutions. Just minutes ago, Chairman Jim Jordan took aim at Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office that just prosecuted Donald Trump in his trial. A jury found the former president guilty, as you know, of all 34 counts.
Also, never forget, in November of 2022, President Trump announced he was a candidate for president of the United States. And just a few weeks later, Alvin Bragg hires former senior Biden Justice Department official Matthew Colangelo to come up and run the prosecution. Someone who had a history of taking on President Trump and his family's businesses, and had also worked for the New York State Attorney General. Alvin Bragg, partisan DA that campaigned on going after President Trump, whose newly hired lead prosecutor for the case also had a history of taking on President Trump, had their case now in front of a partisan judge.
Alvin Bragg and one of his lead prosecutors in Trump's criminal case, Matthew Colangelo, are set to testify publicly next month. That'll be just a day after Trump's scheduled sentencing. We're going to monitor this hearing and bring you the headlines out of it. A possible terror attack has been thwarted. New York Police Department officials pulled over a man reportedly with extreme jihadist views. Well, if you're waging jihad, that's pretty extreme, so this guy must be the devil. It's over an obscured license plate. What they found was terrifying. A loaded gun, 9 loaded magazines, 2 axes, multiple knives, a whip, a stun gun, a baton, police body armor. A police source told the New York Post something very bad was potentially averted. The intent is still under investigation. The sum of the parts had the potential for something awful. All of that in a quote. This comes after the arrest of 8 suspected ISIS terrorists who crossed into the United States through the southern border. Texas Senator Ted Cruz has a warning.
The Biden administration does not prioritize national security or protecting the safety and security of your family or mine. What's happened at the southern border for 3.5 years, we've seen a criminal invasion at our southern border. Sadly, I have been saying for some time, we are at a greater risk right now of a major terrorist attack than we've been at any time since September 11th.
Brian Yanis, New York City. Look, we've heard this from the FBI Director, Chris Wray. We're hearing from multiple agencies on Capitol Hill, intelligence, top senators. What does it take? This was not a shock that this is rolling out the way it is. Thank God we're okay today.
Yeah, thank God we're okay today. Thanks to the work of the NYPD. Look, this suspect has been identified as Judd Sanson. The 27-year-old is not facing terrorism-related charges, at least not yet, as they investigate the possible motive. Sanson is facing criminal weapons possession charges and for having an obscured license plate. Police say at 1:30 in the morning yesterday, NYPD officers patrolling in Queens, New York, spotted a black Ford Explorer with a blacked out license plate. The officers pulled the car over and inside made a disturbing discovery, a stockpile of weapons and indications of a possible terror attack plot. Sanson was traveling with a V for Vendetta mask. It's an anti-government symbol. NYPD uniform items, including handcuffs and logoed bulletproof vest, and an orange MTA reflective vest, which is a uniform worn by employees working in the city's subway system. In addition to all the weapons, the loaded 9mm handgun, the 9 loaded magazines, knives, a stun gun, the New York Post is reporting Sanson had been living in his car and shared extreme jihadist views online. Police finding ominous messages etched into a baton found in his car that read, quote, "You left me no choice. I am sorry," and a message in Arabic that read, "God forgive me." Now, this happening after FBI Director Christopher Wray warned last week that the risk of a terror attack in this country is at, quote, "a whole nother level," with the southern border as a particular vulnerability. This week, 8 migrants with ties to ISIS were arrested in the U.S. after crossing the southern border illegally. The migrants had been fully vetted and cleared by CBP, and it wasn't until after they were in the U.S. that their ISIS ties were discovered. A new DHS Inspector General report, Harris, concludes DHS is not effectively screening non-citizens and asylum seekers, warning the U.S. is at risk of admitting dangerous people into the country. Harris.
Do the math. Like this is not hard. But again, thank God for the people who are protecting us. Thank you, Brian.
Of course.
That New York City arrest comes after a recent explosion of Jewish hate. Right now, House lawmakers are set to press university leaders over the hate we have seen on their campuses. Several hate-filled anti-Israel protests turned violent just in recent days. Department of Justice and all of this, we know crimes are being committed between the vandalism, the death threats, the river to the sea, all of it. The hate, Jewish hate, and the threats against Jewish Americans in this country. Today's New York Post cover says, "Don't let hate hide." Yeah, Jewish leaders are calling for a mask ban to prevent anti-Semites from hiding their identities. Remember, they mandated the governments, our local governments, that we wear masks. It's time that they mandate that the criminals don't. And these protesters who are breaking our freedom of speech are committing a crime. They're perpetrating hate against the lives of Jewish Americans. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer condemned vandals who splattered red paint across the homes of top Brooklyn Museum leaders yesterday.
Jewish Americans made to feel unsafe in their own home just because they are Jewish. This is not even close to free speech. It is intimidation, it is scapegoating, it is dehumanization.
A new column with the headline, "Protesters are harassing Jews every day in NYC. When will polls or politicians," that's that abbreviation for them, "protect them?" It's author Carol Markowitz demanding justice be served.
more police officer presence, arresting people who are violent, arresting people who are threatening. I think all of that needs to happen in order for Jews to feel secure in New York. It's depressing to me. I lived in New York my whole life, and I think that it's gotten so bad that a lot of Jews are thinking about getting out. And does Mayor Adams want that? He brags that he has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. These Jews are going to leave if they're not protected.
Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor. Look, we know what this is about. They're not moving because they figure they don't have to. They're not going to lose the Jewish vote for themselves or President Biden, so they think.
Yeah, I don't think the Democrats are capable of protecting Americans. I really don't, because I don't think they believe the threat is real. And it's more than hate. I think hate is too soft of a word. I think it's meant to not only intimidate and hate, but to call people to action. And that action, in their words, in the equating it to Hitler, is to murder them and to kill them. And it's sickening, but Secretary Mayorkas and Attorney General Garland have been on Capitol Hill telling us that white supremacy is the number one threat to the United States of America. That's what they think is the number one threat. Yet the FBI director is highlighting this, and we can see our own video and see what's going on with our own eyes. And there's a total disconnect. They are not focused on solving this problem, which means arresting people and prosecuting people. You can't do this in the United States of America. It is not free speech, Chuck Schumer. Well, you're right. But then do something about it.
Well, look, what about the mask? You know, I mean, when you talk about prosecuting people, you're going to have to know who they are. And we have so many people in this country now, millions of them, that we have not vetted coming across our southern border. Some of them, 8 suspects tied to ISIS from Tajikistan just days ago. We don't know who's here. We know, though, that they're among us, at least in part because they hate America, because they tell us that they do. What about the masks?
Yeah, look, they've brought in millions of people. This has been the Biden-Harris policies to bring these people in. And the masks, you're right. If you're going to go out and do this, look, if somebody's breaking the law, then detain them, arrest them, identify them, prosecute them. But that's not what the Democrats are all about. Democrats are like, hey, let's get them and get them back out on the street as quickly as possible. Kamala Harris, before she became the vice president, was doing that very thing, trying to get these rioters out on the streets as quickly as possible. No bail, no consequence for these actions.
And why was she doing
that?
that?
And I believe they're terrorists. No, I'm sorry, what?
I was just asking why she was doing that, but I think you've explained. I mean, it's not something that they see as threatening at this point. All right, I've got to run. I appreciate you being with me. Jason, thank you. Hunter Biden all but certain to appeal his conviction on the felony gun charge.
Garland held in contempt of Congress. At least those steps are heading that direction. We'll get to it. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. We've been following the Merrick Garland scandal of his obstruction. Here's a quick intro by James Comer.
The Oversight and Judiciary Committees issued duly authorized legal subpoenas to Attorney General Garland for a certain set of documents, including the audio recordings of Special Counsel Hur's interview with President Biden.
It's the Hur interview that is the big cover-up. I'll read a few tweets. Here's Mike Benz. Never in our nation's history has there been a more worthy and long overdue contempt resolution than one for Merrick Garland. Kudos, credit, and praise goes to Rep. James Comer. For people who say they don't do anything, they did something. Here's the Oversight Committee Chairman Comer speaks on House floor in support of resolution to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt. Here, remember, as the Democrats say, no one is above the law.
The Attorney General has refused to produce these audio recordings. Unlike what my Democratic colleagues keep claiming, this is not just Republicans who need these recordings for their oversight duties. Media outlets, including the AP, CBS, CNN, NBC, and the Washington Post, among others, have filed suit to get these same audio recordings as well.
Democrat media outlets are saying, Biden, though you're a Democrat, you're covering up. Merrick Garland is covering this up. So this is even the Democrat media arm are calling out their own. This is a sign of them throwing Biden under the bus. They're ready to be done with this guy.
Because the media, like everyone else, knows there's no substitute for a recording of an interview. Not a transcript, not a summary, not the Attorney General's judgment that Congress doesn't need it. The Oversight Committee's investigation of these classified documents has already revealed that the White House's official timeline of events regarding these classified materials left out very important details.
Yeah, so they've already been leaving stuff out. What did they leave out? Important timelines. I'll make a guess on two others in a minute. Two other important things that they probably are covering up.
For instance, White House employees were entering the Penn Biden Center and moving documents months before the discovery of the classified materials by President Biden's personal attorneys in November 2022. One of those employees was former White House counsel Dana Remus. We issued a subpoena for Mrs. Remus's deposition, but the White House has blocked Mrs. Remus from speaking to the Oversight Committee.
Okay, so the number one thing I believe they're covering up is that the transcript that was released to the public does not match the recording in substance. So not just Biden saying and, but probably reveals the depth of his senility or whatever it is that's wrong with him that they were trying to cover up. That's one point. There's James Comer.
The White House has also blocked other White House employees who visited the Penn Biden Center before November 2022 from speaking to us. What is the Biden administration trying to hide?
Yeah, I believe that the Biden administration, in point number 2, is hiding substance that they wanted to go after Trump. It could be other parts of the investigation, like Biden could say things like, "I'm really upset that they haven't arrested Trump yet." That would go to his motive in all of these corrupt DAs and judges on their witch hunt of Trump.
Attorney General Merrick Garland's refusal to produce this evidence establishes a clear pattern of obstruction by the DOJ to cover up President Biden's wrongdoing. President Biden has lied to the American people about his mishandling of classified documents. He has repeatedly denied not knowing about or being involved in his family's influence peddling schemes, which the Oversight Committee can now show has raked in $18 million from foreign individuals and entities for the Biden family members, including President Biden himself.
Just remember, the Department of Justice is not for justice, but this is normal oversight for Congress. This is their job. This is how one branch of government checks the other. Remember, the Democrats in Congress are trying to put the Supreme Court under their overview. The Democrats are, that they don't want the Congress even to do its normal job of being a check and balance on the president.
He also met with nearly all his family's foreign associates. President Biden's Department of Justice appears to be taking every step to insulate him from the consequences, whether it's hiding these audio recordings or attempting to give Hunter Biden a sweetheart plea deal to shield Joe Biden from facing accountability for his role in his family's influence peddling schemes.
And this is what happens when you hide things, is it makes people very curious about those recordings. Now we all want to know, including ABC, CBS, CNN.
The House of Representatives cannot serve as a necessary check on the presidency if the executive branch is free to ignore the House's subpoenas. I urge my colleagues to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress.
Yeah, this is normal congressional stuff. This is normal oversight they're supposed to be doing. And here's the vote. What happened with the vote?
On this vote, the yeas are 208, the nays are 207. The resolution is adopted. Without
a damn good show. Rob Snyder, he called out Will Smith. Yeah. He exposed him. Check out the video.
What?
Oh, I liked him.
Will Smith has been. Will Smith is a twat.
Oh, I liked him.
Will Smith has been hiding the fact of who he really is, and it was exposed that night that he's really an asshole. But I wasn't allowed to say anything at that time because we were part of the committee. Right. I was supposed to punish him.
And how do you punish him?
Wow, wait. Let's just back up a second. Hang on.
I want to know
Will Smith is like, for me, when I met him, right, I always say.
Like the nicest, most wonderful. He's a liar. complete utter fraud. Will is a douchebag, and that's something that you can't. The thing is, that's how politically correct the Academy is.
Right.
That they were so cowardly. Because if I would have done that, they would have been hauled out to prison because like they were so worried about being, racist. Violence is what it is, and what the color of your skin or your religion doesn't matter.
Sure.
If you commit a crime in front of other people, you get hauled out of there.
Yeah, but didn't you also sort of think, he's standing up for his missus? You didn't like that?
It doesn't matter. You can't hit another dude.
Is that dude trying to stand up for justify what Will Smith? He's standing for his missus. Playing devil's advocate, Yeah. He's standing for his missus. Stand up for your missus is when somebody trying to attack your girl. Yeah. Then you step in. Yeah. Someone making a little joke on national television. Yeah. I mean, was it even that? It wasn't even that. It was mild, but she suffered some condition where she was losing her hair. No. So no. They're probably sensitive because of the issue, but that still don't give you the right to someone. Jada Pinkett is a witch, and Will Smith is an asshole. Oh no shit. And nobody does that off of that joke what he said that night. Yeah, no. Do you remember Mel Gibson's face when he did that? No. You don't remember that? They went to Mel Gibson in the audience and his face was long. I'd never seen that. You didn't see that? No. Hey, maybe you can find it. Mel Gibson's face when Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. I didn't even know he was there. Yeah, he was there in the audience. I didn't think he liked being there, all them Jews there. Mel Gibson is not a fan of the Jews. You know that? I didn't know that. Maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe he's a fan. I don't know. Could have swore Mel Gibson. I don't think he's a fan of Negroes neither. Especially after that night. I'm at the Academy Awards and you got Negroes on stage slapping each other. Yeah, you know that night he won the top honor an actor can receive. The best honor actor can receive. It's like it signifies you as an actor, and he slapped another black man that night. Yeah, that is not by coincidence. I don't. You know what's funny? Like for years, black people said, "Man, the Academy Awards they never recognize black people and actors. They're racist. They only give it to white actors. The night they give it to a black person. Look what happens. He assaults another black man on stage live. Yeah, that's not a coincidence. Yeah. Oh, look, there's a picture at the top. See right there, people's reactions. Look at The Rock. oh, yes. Yeah. Can you make it bigger? Celebrity reactions. Is that real? Yes. Yeah. I don't think that's real, is it? Gee, that's real, man. That happened. I don't know, but the white dude with the beard, that totally looks out of place. But The Rock, he was there, right? And then you got, I forget his name at the top. But is that authentic at the bottom of Mel Gibson? Is that the one? Yeah. Yeah. This ain't real. Yeah. Some of these ain't real. Yeah. But I remember Dwayne The Rock Johnson, his expression on his face, that was authentic. I remember that image of Dwayne. He was in the audience when that happened. Yeah, The Rock looked like he looking at the devil. Yeah, but I think a majority of people, well, I wouldn't say majority, but that's my biggest fear. Like, if somebody I really look up to, like an actor, I would never approach them because it would destroy me if a person turned out to be an, a-hole. I mean, but why does that person... if somebody, really resonates with you, his work, right? The movies he's done, like, we got some movies that I've watched like 15, 20 times. Right. Imagine going up to that actor and saying, man, I loved you, man. Get the hell away from me. That would crush me. So if I did see my favorite actor, I would never approach him unless he approached me. Approached you? Yeah, approached me. Yeah, but, like we have people that approach us and I always make sure, man, I'm really nice. Yeah, I'm very cognizant of that. Yeah, I don't, because these people, these actors don't really understand these people in Hollywood. And I really didn't truly understand until, I went out in public after I became very successful on YouTube. It's like, man, you change people's lives, and then for them to approach you, and then you just totally just just ruin that day. Not only will you ruin that day, you ruin that week. Yeah, no, but once it happened, I never looked at Will Smith the same, because I like Our Robot. I didn't see that on how many times. Yeah, I Am Legend. I just movies I really like. Right. And now I don't even look at him no more, because that dude's a total jerk. Yeah. Anybody that goes on stage and live during a ceremony, that's crazy. Yeah. Like anybody else would have been arrested. Like, you walk on stage when a comedian is performing and you assault him, you're going straight to jail. Even Rob Schneider pointed out, they didn't even let the judicial system step in. They actually put a committee together and decided what his punishment was. Well, if the cops if the cops want to do something, they could have did something. That's crazy. But they didn't want to do nothing. Will Smith walks on stage, slaps someone, assaults someone, and Donald Trump's a convicted felon. Something's wrong with that. Man, why you bring Trump in this? Because some people think Trump's a felon. Yeah. People actually believe that. Yeah. And some people actually believe Will Smith was defending his missus. Just dumb. You can't fix stupid. It's just stupid. Show's over.
Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress over his refusal to hand over the Biden-Hur audio. I spoke with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, just moments ago, and why he wants that audio. Watch. Thanks for joining me. Your reaction to what you just heard and to this vote.
Look, I think that yesterday's vote is a continued politicization of going after various secretaries. I actually have a great deal of respect for our Attorney General. I do not think he was playing games. I think there was an investigation. He did not find cause. Republicans didn't like the outcome. And I would really ask us, Maria, on all sides, we had to take a deep breath and stop politicizing people that are in public service. This is a gotcha moment, really. It's not going to go anywhere. We need to be working together on, I think, the way that he sometimes twists the facts.
Right, but
I wish.
But I'm asking about that on him.
He was
the
just
attacks on
convicted
him.
of 34 counts in a court of 34 counts of a felony in a due process by a jury of his peers.
What was the crime? What was the crime, Congressman?
What was the crime? Yeah. The crime was that he lied to people. He manipulated payments that were being made. He violated the law in terms of why was he making these payments.
Do you see any similarity to the 51 intelligence officials who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop right before the 2020 election, calling it Russian disinformation?
Hunter Biden, by the way, we have a problem on all sides with Russian disinformation. So I'm never going to downplay. I think
but specifically, the Hunter Biden laptop was real. They signed a letter saying that it was Russian disinformation. Is that a similar situation to what President Trump was just convicted of?
Hunter Biden was in a court and convicted.
No, that was gun charge. That was a very separate situation, different situation. I'm talking about the Hunter Biden laptop. Right before the 2020 election, 51 intelligence officials signed a letter saying it was Russian disinformation. They hid the truth before the election. Is that similar to what Trump was just charged with?
You know, there's an investigation going into that laptop. I don't have the facts. I think you're going to hear a lot more about this laptop in the coming months. I'm not privy, Maria, and about what was on there, what wasn't.
Right. No, I'm just asking if it's a similar situation. Is it a similar situation that people hid truth before the election in 2020 about Hunter Biden, and now Trump was just charged with, I guess, hiding truth ahead of an election about a $130,000 payment he made to a porn star? Is it the same?
First of all, I don't have all the facts, so I'm careful.
I'm sorry?
I think I don't have all the facts. I think a lot of people were looking for facts, didn't know what the Biden computer was. I still don't know. I think this Trump trial happened after I don't know all the facts related to this. I read lots of stuff.
Well, I know that the DOJ used the laptop as evidence in the gun trial against Hunter Biden. So they obviously looked at the laptop. They said that it is real. And we knew that it was real at the time, but 51 intelligence officials said it wasn't. They lied.
Well, I don't have the letter in front of me. Look, nobody's above the law. I want to make that really clear. Nobody. The rule of law needs to work in this country. We've seen it twice now. In the last month, people have been convicted. And I want to know that the rule of law works. Nobody. And I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat or who they are, wherever. The rule of law is a very important
I totally agree with
fact in our country.
I totally agree. Do you think President Trump has been treated fairly in these last 6 years?
Yeah, I do. I think that media on both sides can go after people, but I think Donald Trump's brought on a lot of his own problems, quite frankly. Yes.
Well, the former president has been hitting the campaign trail this week, and he's headed to Michigan, your state. I want to get your take on that. Fox News polls show that Trump is leading Biden by 3 points in your state. 4 years ago, Biden was leading by 8 points. Congressman, what do you think is going on here in your home state that Trump is actually leading Biden in these polls?
So I think it's early. I think Michigan's a total purple state. You know, I've said that. Maria, you were one of the only people that believed me when I said Donald Trump could win Michigan in 2015.
That's right. You said that.
And I was right.
Yeah,
and then it was a competitive race. We are a very purple state. I think Donald Trump understands the insecurities of a lot of people and is very good at talking to them about it. There are a lot of issues in Michigan. It's not just one issue. I think this race in Michigan could go either way. Democrats have to do a far better job in delivering the message, talking about the issues. Donald Trump knows how to, he does talk to people's insecurities. He doesn't necessarily deliver on what those insecurities are or the promises that he makes.
Well, he delivered certainly in the border, right? I mean, that was his main issue when he was president. And we were at, what, I guess a 40-year low or something, a 40-year low, I believe it was, in terms of border apprehensions. And now we're above a 20-year high. So when you take a look at the border issues and the fact that we've let in people who are on the terrorist watch list, do you feel that the Democrats and the Republicans see the national security threat that is a wide open border the same?
I want to say this here. I think there are a lot more issues in Michigan than this. The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump stopped. Republicans and Democrats in the Senate worked for months to reach an agreement that didn't make anybody perfectly happy, but would have done something. And Donald Trump said, don't do it. We don't want to win. The border has been a problem through Republican presidents and Democratic presidents.
Yeah, but it's gotten much worse under Biden. You know that. It's gotten much worse under Joe Biden.
I can go back. I'm going to tell. The 9/11 happened under a Republican president.
Yeah, but that wasn't about the open border. That wasn't about the open border.
Well, they came in they came into this country. We didn't catch those terrorists.
So how come we terrorists trying to come in? We all witnessed 9/11. I was there. We all felt it. We all had friends that we lost, and we know that it only took 19 people to take down the Trade Center. Why are we okay with having 350 people apprehended on the terrorist watch list? Why are we okay with 50,000 Chinese nationals coming in through the open border in the last year? Why aren't we doing more about that right now, Congresswoman?
We need to be doing more about it, and we need to be putting more money, which has been cut, into border agents. We need to be putting more money into asylum. Maria, this isn't simple because we also have farmers, we have small businesses that need workers, that they're not coming in. It's impacting the economy. It is so complicated.
Wait a second. You're talking about illegal immigration versus illegal, right? I'm talking about illegal. I know we need workers. It's fine. But I'm talking about, we have a structure in place to do that legally, right? We give out, what, 1 million visas a year?
We don't have people to even process that. We need to be putting more money.
So are you justifying an open border right now? You're justifying an open border right now?
I'm not justifying an open border. I want to go with the compromise that was reached by the Republicans, led by Republicans in negotiations. And why did we not move forward with it in the Senate? Because we didn't want to give them a win?
Because it was allowing 5,000 illegals to come in a day before doing anything about it. And even the president's executive order right now has all these carve-outs. I mean, Congressman, come on. One of the carve-outs is unaccompanied children. Really? Unaccompanied children? The drug cartels have been exploiting unaccompanied children for years. And now that's a carve-out in the president's open border executive order?
Maria, this is a very complicated subject that no one's been able to deal with for decades.
President Trump dealt with it. President Trump dealt with it. We were at a 40-year low in terms of apprehension.
I respectfully disagree with you on that.
The House passed H.R. 2. Did you vote against H.R. 2?
I don't remember.
You don't remember if you voted against H.R. 2?
I can't. It was under Donald Trump, and I can't remember what I voted on back then. So I should have put it before today.
That was an important bill, HR 2. You don't remember how you voted?
Maria, it's early morning, and it was.
But it's 10 to 8 in the morning, Congresswoman.
I know, and I get up I'm in the office at 5:30. I have to go back. I don't give false facts.
Congresswoman,
but I want to protect the border.
Yes.
It is a real issue. We need to be putting the dollars in, and we need to be working together on it instead of politicizing it.
Yeah.
That's what we always do. We do it as a gotcha against each other. Why isn't this an issue we can work together on?
I'm talking about 350 people apprehended from the terrorist watch list. I'm talking about 50,000 Chinese nationals having come in the last year.
We don't want them to come in.
But
we don't have people.
What is the gotcha?
Well, the fentanyl, by the way, is an issue that's killing everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
But because Republicans will not put the money into what we need to protect the border. Why can't we have negotiations as Republicans and Democrats like they did in the Senate and then move forward and try to move it? Why does Donald Trump said, I don't want that bill, don't do it? That's not okay either.
Well,
that's not solving the problem.
Well, we need a solution. You and I agree on that. Congressman, let me real quick on the Andrew Cuomo testimony yesterday. You're on the subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. Your takeaway from the Cuomo testimony yesterday?
We're continuing to go after the facts. This select committee for me is a very important committee. There were clearly things that need to be investigated. We need to be transparent on everything. What I don't want this committee to do.
What you don't need. They even know things you didn't even know you needed. But for the first time in a long time, the Democrats threw up their arms in despair.
Donald Trump's approval rating was actually slightly larger than Joe Biden's was at this point. Trump was at 43%. Biden is at just 41%. So he's doing worse than Trump, who he was always saying was doing so poorly.
The question is, how solid a candidate is Joe Biden? Oh my God! Wow!
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
And what is exactly the problem? That we don't know how solid a candidate Joe Biden is.
We know he's not a solid candidate.
Exactly.
He is struggling. I mean,
within his own party.
It is hard to watch. After the Russia hoax, 2 impeachments, 3 indictments, and a country bitterly divided by class and education, the New York Times experienced a temporary moment of clarity. Columnist David Brooks is asking, what if we're the bad guys here? Humility finally arrived at the New York Times, and we're not going to mock them for it. We're actually encouraged by their ability to step into someone else's shoes for once. The professional class is finding itself wondering, maybe the Texas oil worker isn't a bigot. Maybe the Ohio truck driver with a Trump bumper sticker just likes his trade policies. What if the deplorable store clerk in Arkansas is tired of being robbed? What if we're the problem? What if our snobby attitudes, our exclusive tribes, and our globalist policies are damaging the working class and turning everybody off? In the piece, David Brooks says the problem actually goes back to the 1960s. When the working class were drafted off to Vietnam to fight in a war pushed by Ivy League foreign policy elites, while the wealthy sons of the elites got deferments. That was the moment everything changed. Academic achievement determined how the social order is structured. What? You either went to exclusive prep schools, elite East Coast colleges or grad schools, or you didn't. The media profession, which used to be full of old crusty working class guys hustling around with a pen and paper, used to hold powerful interests accountable. But now the media profession is stuffed with upper class Americans who don't hold powerful interests accountable because they're all from the same class. They all went to the same schools, go to the same clubs. They all live in the same neighborhoods. The upper class media has aligned itself with the upper political class and the business class into one big professional class that looks down their nose at the rest of the country and tries to keep them out of the club. David Brooks says they're segregating themselves. They don't believe certain people belong in politics or in media or in any position of power in the country. That's their job. They were born into it.
Wow.
They were groomed for it. Living in the Boston, New York, D.C. axis, they've propped themselves up into these urban coastal power centers, and this goes for coastal California too, and they've created an economic system which keeps them and only them elevated. Their jobs and status are always safe. The policies that serve them, open borders, open China, AI, green tech, don't serve the rest of the country. In fact, their policies wreak havoc on the rest of the country. If your factory or your refinery gets shut down, you're replaceable. They're not. To them, you're just a number in the monthly unemployment report. Even during the pandemic, they thrived. There's always a hammock nearby. Brooks admitted it, quote, armed with all the kinds of economic, cultural, and political power, we support policies that help ourselves. Free trade makes the products we buy cheaper, and our jobs are unlikely to be moved to China. Open immigration makes our service staff cheaper, but new, less educated immigrants aren't likely to put downward pressure on our wages. What? No. There's no empathy in the professional class. They talk down to you, if they talk to you at all. Since academic credentials mean everything, they use words and phrases to show everybody how smart and politically correct they are. They make everybody else feel alienated and kind of confused. Non-binary. Who does that? Intersectionality? Marginalized communities? What? It's like they have their own dialect. Lingo to signify status. And after years of thinking they're better than you, along came Donald Trump.
Interesting.
A billionaire who's better than all of them in all the ways they valued. He went to an Ivy League school. He owned golf courses, iconic real estate. He had beautiful women. He was a celebrity. He was a star. Sure, he was a little crude, but Hillary was at his wedding. He was accepted until he threatened their political power, until he listened to you and told the professional class of what you thought of them, until he came in, humiliated the press, the Bush and the Clinton dynasty, and the power brokers who thought opening China was a great idea. He showed the entire country that the professional class were only pretending to know what they're doing. Yes! That's awesome! But they were actually just a bunch of selfish, greedy, and insecure social climbers. Imagine that. A billionaire who listened to the forgotten man. Brooks says, quote, it's easy to understand why people in less educated classes would conclude that they're under economic, political, cultural, and moral assault, and why they've rallied around Trump as their best warrior against the educated class. He understood that it's not the entrepreneurs who seem most threatening to workers. It's the professional class. Trump understood that there was great demand for a leader who would stick his thumb in our eyes on a daily basis and reject the whole epistemic regime that we rode in on. Basically, Trump's popular because he actually cares. He cares about the whole country, not just the professional class who used to run it or run it into the ground. This is why Trump's such a threat. He threatens not just their power, he threatens to invalidate their status.
Well, shit.
An exalted role in America. Now, sometimes this class of classes is ugly. We get it. But it's necessary for the United States to move forward together in the 21st century. So when Trump's attacked, the country is attacked. That's why these indictments don't have the punishing effect on the Republican Party, which has now become the party of populism, that the professional class had expected. People like Van Jones, who get it, sometimes gets it, doesn't get it here.
In some ways, this would be a normal person's nightmare and maybe a narcissist's dream, you know? to be martyred, you know, for his cause, for his people, to have to go and face the establishment. I'm doing this for you. Trump has been quite masterful at getting half the country now to go along with this delusion that he has that somehow he's the victim here when he's not.
You know, some of the greatest
I do not believe it.
human beings in history have been martyrs. What if someone's a martyr, you're just supposed to abandon them? That's not how martyrdom works. These indictments have backfired, and the polls reflect it. Back in March, before any of these indictments, Trump was polling at 43 on the Real Clear Politics average in the primary. He gets hit with his first indictment, the New York Bragg indictment, and now he's up at 50. 2 months later, Trump gets hit with Mar-a-Lago doc indictments. What happens? He's up at 56. So what do you think happens now? No wonder Trump's saying, I need one more indictment to ensure my election. I mean, in the New York Times poll, he's already tied with Biden, dead even. So it kind of feels like Democrats want Trump reelected.
And maybe the more this thing becomes clear what was done, you've got to believe that rational thought will come back in the minds of some of these people. But if not, then it's going to take the overwhelming organization, just as you were talking about earlier.
It was all a lie. Guys, it was all a lie. She lied.
Organizing the country at all the levels so that he cannot win that election.
Now the revenge tour. Trump's made the message clear, quote, if you go after me, I'm coming after you. This is the professional class's last stand. If Trump gets back in the White House, all of them will be discredited and knocked from their perches. This is why they're covering up the Biden scandal so vigilantly. The Biden scandal is like holding up a mirror to Washington.
Thank you, Shaq.
Every elite all sit down at the same dinners, go to the same parties, get paid by the same companies, and whose entire family is all playing the inside game. It's been a sleazy patronage mill for an eternity. And they don't want to stop printing the money. But at the end of the day, the White House is the people's house. We choose the outcome. Most presidents leave the White House with some big accomplishments under their belt. Historic moments that'll fill books and museums for the rest of time. Like JFK deploying a wall of warships around Cuba to blockade the Russians during the missile crisis. Or Richard Nixon presiding over Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, plunging the American flag into the surface of the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
We all remember George Bush rallying the nation after 9/11 on a pile of rubble in Lower Manhattan.
Dun, dun, dun.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Every president has signature moments that define their terms. But there's one president who doesn't have much to brag about. He's only 2 years into his presidency, but is there a moment that Joe Biden is going to be remembered for? The botched withdrawal from Afghanistan historically is probably the one thing so far that's seared into the nation's memory. And that and falling off of his bike.
Okay.
And don't tell me it's Biden strolling through Ukraine with fake air raid sirens. That's just a proxy war. But the binder has already cemented Joe's legacy for us. She knows what her boss will go down in history for. The old straight white male's legacy is diversity.
You've heard this from the president, you've heard this from me, you've heard this from many of us here. Diversity and representation is really important to this president. I want to take the opportunity to lay out how diverse the president's cabinet has been, how diverse the president's administration has been.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
The cabinet is majority people of color for the first time in history. The cabinet is majority female for the first time in history. A majority of White House senior staff identify as female. 40% of White House senior staff identify as part of the racially diverse communities. And a record 7 assistants to the president are openly LGBTQ+. So again, this is something that the president prides himself on.
Diversity's fine by me. Racial, gender, sexual, whatever. I don't care what you are or how you identify, as long as you can get the job done. And that's the problem. The Biden administration isn't getting the job done. It seems like during the hiring process, looks at your picture and your pronouns, and that's more important than your talent and experience. Black, gay, woman, trans. If you shatter a ceiling, you have a job at the White House.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
When you hire people and you make their identity more important than their qualifications, you don't get the most competent people. But that might not be their goal. The Biden White House doesn't seem like they're trying to hire the best and the brightest.
Yeah, boy.
They're trying to hire the most diverse and representative. And when their identity gets them the job, and their identity protects them from legit criticism, you can appoint whoever you want. You can appoint ideologues, patsies, loyalists, yes men and women. As long as they're diverse. Are there black, gay, Hispanic females who are qualified to work at the top levels of the government? Of course. But that's not who was hired in this administration. Biden's making diversity look like a bad thing because his picks aren't delivering. And people are starting to realize it doesn't matter what you look like. Our players, our best ones, aren't out on the field. Look at the vice president. She called Joe Biden a racist, didn't get a single vote in the primary, and flamed out after burning through tons of cash and staff.
I like turtles.
But Biden boxed himself in and promised to pick the first black female VP. Was she really the best option? Was she even the best black female option?